May its threshold be no stubbornness, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. And then we move to page 130 for L'chu Niranana. And then moving on to page 131, Shirula Ladonai.
Shirula Ladonai. Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai Baruchu Shemo, Nasru miyom leyom Yeshuato, V'habru Hagoyim Kevodo, Sapru Tiferet b'mikdasho, Oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho, Adonai, Adonai, Shamayim asa, Adonai, Adonai, Shamayim asa.
Thank you. We continue with the Kabbalat Shabbat, the series of psalms that we recite or sing at the start of the Friday night service, welcoming Shabbat. We continue on page 135 with Psalm 99. We'll do it in Hebrew. Please read along with me. Adonai Malach Yirzgu Amim Yoshev Keruvim Tanut Haaretz Adonai Petzion Gadol V'ramhu al Kol Ha'amim Yodu Shimcha Gadol V'Nora Kadosh Hu V'oz Melech Mishpat Ehev Ata Konananta Meshetim Mishpat Utzedakah B'Yakov Ata Esita Romemu Adonai Eloheinu V'Ishtachavu Lahadom Raglav Kadosh Hu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu V'Ishtachavu Laha Kodsho Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. And then we will move to page 138, the Lecha Dodi, which is one of the highlights of the Kabbalat Shabbat. It's actually a relatively recent innovation to the Friday night service. It's only been in the service for about 400 years, so which is a recent innovation. And I think it's important to know that something that is now such an important part of our service actually was quite a radical innovation at some point in the past. So we're going to do verses 1 to 5 and 9, and when we get to verse 9, we stand up and we turn to face the door to welcome symbolically the Shabbat bride into into the shul.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השביענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נשוכה, סוף מעשה במקשבה תפילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בעורף קומי אורי. אורי, אורי, שדברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה. תוך אמונה חום סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Thank you. And then our concluding psalm in the Kabbalat Shabbat will be Mizmor Shir on page 140.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, לזמר לשמך העליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות, עלה עשור ועלה ועלה היגיון לחינוך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, לזמר לשמך העליון. שמחני אדוני בקולך, ומעשה ידיך רענן. מגלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. אדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון.
The righteous bloom like a date palm. They thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the Eternal One's house, they flourish in our God's courts. In old age, they still produce fruit. They are full of sap and freshness, attesting that God is upright, my rock in whom there is no wrong.
צדיק התמר יפרח יפרח, צדיק התמר יפרח, ארז בלבנון יזכה, ארז בלבנון יזכה, ארז בלבנון יזכה, יזכה, ארז בלבנון יזכה, ארז בלבנון יזכה, ארז בלבנון יזכה, יזכה. שתולים בבית אדוני, שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו, בחצרות אלוהינו, בחצרות אלוהינו, יפריחו. בחצרות אלוהינו, בחצרות אלוהינו, בחצרות אלוהינו, יפריחו. עוד ינובון בשיבה, עוד ינובון בשיבה, דשנים ורעננים, דשנים ורעננים, דשנים ורעננים יהיו. דשנים ורעננים, דשנים ורעננים, דשנים ורעננים יהיו. להגיד כי ישר אדוני, להגיד כי ישר אדוני, צורי ולא עוולת בו, 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 צורי ולא עוולת בו.
Thank you. We now have come to the end of the Kabbalat Shabbat, so we mark that end and the transition to the next section by doing the Chatzi Kaddish. So if I could ask you all to stand, please, and then remain standing when we do the Baruch Hu. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shmei Rabbah. Sorry, it's on page 144. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shmei Rabbah. Ba'alma tivrach gerutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon of yomechon of chayei techol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agalo v'zman kariv v'yimeru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach li'alam u'lomei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'av v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadav v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei de'kudisha brechu leila min kol b'chata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata ta'amiran ba'alma v'yimeru. Amen. And now we go to the call to prayer, the Baruch Hu, on page 146. Thank you. Please be seated. We now move to page 148, the Ma'ariv Aravim. I think this prayer and the alternative readings on the page opposite are, for me, part of the most moving and important parts of the service. At one level, it's a blessing to God for creating the distinction between day and night. But I think it's not about the physicality of day and night. It's not about explaining the physical rotation of the earth or the revolution of the earth around the sun. But it's an opportunity for us to mark time as we go through life. We may have had a really boring week where nothing's happened. We may have had a stressful week where we were rushing from appointment to appointment, and at the end of the week you think, well, what did I accomplish this week? I could just have stayed in bed and had an easier time. Or we might have had life-changing things happen to us, either positive or negative. And whichever that is, I think it's important, because we have a finite time on earth, it is important to mark that time so we don't just look back at a blur, but think about what happens to us in an intentional way every week. So I'm going to, and I hope you'll read with me, the Hebrew on page 148, and then in English, the alternate reading at the bottom of page 149. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'dvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, uvivvotanu mesham itim, umachalef et hazmanim, umasadeh et hakochavim, b'mishmoretehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Umavia yom umevi layla, umavdil bein yom uvein layla, Adonai tzavot shemo, el chava kayam, tamid yemloch aleinu leolam va'ed, baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. And we are now then going to move to page 152 for one of the central parts of the service, the Shema, and then do the supplementary readings after that. So, Jason, am I doing the Shema or you? I'm doing it. Okay, right. So, if you'd like to cover your eyes to reflect, and we'll do the Shema on page 152, 153. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. And then on to page 154. Please chant with me in the Hebrew. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר נוחי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וכשאתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. And then on to page 155 at the bottom. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. And then on to page 156, we have the emet, which is an affirmation of our blessings. And I'm going to do an alternate reading on page 157, which is an adaptation from a book by the philosopher Michael Walzer. If you want to read with me, please do. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe that what we were taught before we ever stood on Sinai's feet, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. So, of course, I think it's a really interesting blessing. I think it's a great interpretation. Also ask lots of questions, which I'm not sure I know the answer. What does it mean that wherever we are, it's eternally Egypt? We know where we are now, but does it mean figuratively or literally? And where is there? Where are we going to? And so then we will move on to page 158, which this leads then to page 158, and this comes from one of the oldest parts of the Torah, the Mechamocha.
מי כמוך באלם אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך יהובנך בוקר לפני משה ומרים צאלים ענו ויאמרו מי כמוך באלם אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה.
Thank you. Then we'll move over to page 161, the Hashkifenu, a prayer asking for God's protection. And we will do the alternative version on page 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Eternal One, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Blessed are you, Eternal One, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people, Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporeh sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. And then we move to page 162 for Veshamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה Adonai et hashamayim et haaretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Thank you. We now move to page 164 for the Amidah, which, if the Shema is the one pillar of the section, the Amidah is another pillar of our service, very old part of the service. If I could ask you to stand, and if I could ask Marian and Peter to open and close the ark. And we'll start with the intention on page 165. Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as everything depended on you. So we're now going to start onto page, Marion? No, it's this. Are you getting a talus? Peter, do you want to come onto the beamer? Start on page 164, and then we'll move on to the page numbers. Adonai sefertai titachu v'yakita hilaterka. Eternal God, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarai, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon Gonei Chazizim Tovim, Ve'Gonei Hakol, V'Zochei Chazei Alot v'Mohot, U'Mivi'ula V'Bnei B'nehem L'man Shmo V'Ahava, Melech Ozeh U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ezra Sarah. Amen. Page 168. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, V'chayei Metim atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv Ha'uruk HaGroch U'Morid HaGeshem, Mazriach Hashem U'Mushmorid HaTzal, V'chalkel Chayim V'chesed, V'chayei Metim V'rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'rovech Cholim, U'matir Asurim U'kayim Imnoto, Jishenei Avar, Mi Chamocha Bar Gedurot, U'mitom Elah, Melech Me'mitum Chayei, U'matzliach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah לחיות מתים. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei HaMeitim. קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך. סבנו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך. ותהה ליבנו, ותהה ליבנו, ותהה ליבנו לעבדך באמת. ותהה ליבנו, ותהה ליבנו, ותהה ליבנו לעבדך באמת. והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך, וינוחו בא ישראל מקדשי שמך, ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. And on page 173, it's at the top, may these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. And then we'll move to page 175 for Retzeh.
Retzeh Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael utfilatam be'ahava tekabel uti leratzon tamid avodat Yisrael. Amecha, Amecha, El karov lecha korav, pnei lavadecha b'chanenu, shvach ruchecha aleinu, v'techezena eineinu, v'shuvcha lezion berachamim, Baruch atah Adonai, hamachazir shchinato lezion.
Then we move to page 176. Modim enachnu lach shatahu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu leolam va'et. Tzurchayenu magen yeshenu etahu ledor vador. Nodeh lecha unesaper tehiltecha al chayenu hamsurim beyadecha ve'al nishmotenu hapkudot lach ve'al nesecha shebechol yom imanu ve'al naflotecha ve'tovtecha shebechol et erev v'boker tzohorayim. Hatov ki lo chalu rachmecha v'hamrachem ki lo tamu chasadecha me'olam kivinu lach. And then to page 178 for Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Yasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Yasim Leolam. Ki atohu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki atohu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Yasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Yasim Leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Yasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Yasim Leolam. Yasim Leolam. Yasim Leolam.
Varech et Amo Yisrael Bashalom. Thank you very much. Please, if you would be seated. We now have some time for personal reflection and prayer. And after a few moments for that, Jessica will bring us back together.
Iule ratzon imrefi behegion libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri
May the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for us all Israel, and all who inhabit the earth. Amen. Thank you. I must apologize for imposing my voice onto you. You'll recognize why my choir teacher threw me out of the choir as soon as my voice broke. But when I led the service Saturday morning, I was criticized because I didn't lead the service, and then everyone was singing their own tune and at their own pace. So they said it was better to have one person leading who was out of tune than to have many people. So we now move from the Amidah to another important part of the service, page 511, which gives us an opportunity to reflect on those who need support in our community or ourselves, those who are facing challenges physically or mentally. So we go to the Mishaberach on page 511, and I want to read a few names that are were in the bulletin. Willie Jones, Alexandra Levine, Diane McCall, and Karen Mooney. So we think of them. And then if there's anyone else you would like to name, either out loud or in your heart, please.
There are more
do
names here. I'll read them out.
Yes, if you would, please.
Willie Jones. Oh, you've read that. Brian Bossoff. Did you read that?
No. Read them all, Jess. It doesn't hurt to say them
Marlies
again.
Milker, Mike Fowler, Sarah Bet Elisheva, Howard Aronovitz, Lionel Abramovitz, Ann Cooper. Lionel Sleer.
Thank you. So may the one who blessed our ancestors, Abram, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who we've mentioned or in our hearts. May the Blessed One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen.
Mishaberach Lavotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before
Thank you. Every week we read a portion of the Torah, the Parashat, and this week the title of the Parashat is Ki Teitzei. It continues Moses' narration, which is recapping what's happened in the past and recapitulates some of the laws. We're nearing the end of that cycle of the reading of the Torah, which is going to culminate in a few weeks' time with Simchat Torah, which is the end of the High Holy Days, and we'll start the cycle again. Now, I've read this Ki Teitzei several times in the last week in the hope of having some inspiration of something that resonated with me and that I could share with you, and I must say I found it a struggle. One general definition or introduction to Ki Teitzei describes Ki Teitzei as saying it is a miscellany of laws. And I think that's true. That really is what it is. It's of course not very helpful if you're looking for an inspiration, some message that you can share. There are in fact 70 laws, 70 mitzvot that are laid down in this parashat, and considering that there are 613 in total and 52 parashat, it's a disproportionate number of laws that are found in this parasha. And they are not laid out in any obvious way at all. They seem to jump from theme to theme. So I'm sure that there must be some theme and there must be some sequitur, but I didn't see it. And I do know from having put together the High Holy Days book at the end of every year that some of the editors that we've had, like Pat Tucker or Barbara Ludman, would really have had a few words to say about the way in which this was set out. But one insight that I did read was that we need to look at Ki Teitzei in relation to Shoftim, which was last week's parashat. Shoftim is one of those real stirring parashat that are with a clear theme. It's about justice. It's about the importance of striving for justice, and it's about it can be seen as a blueprint for many of what we would see in our society today as the rule of law and the limitations on state power. And Ki Teitzei, on contrast, is not about state power, but about private relationships, about how we interact with each other, with our community, with animals. It's not 100% true, I think, either about Shoftim or Ki Teitzei. I don't think anything in the Torah is as clean as that there's a clear division, but I think it is a useful way of looking at what Ki Teitzei is about, and it's this long list of laws that I'm not going to try to summarize. But I think what we can do when we read any parasha, and I think this one in particular, we can divide the mitzvot into three categories. So there are those mitzvot that we feel very comfortable about when we read them. They're all about, motherhood and apple pie. They really are things that we feel very comfortable about. And then there are things that we feel very uncomfortable about with the 21st century lens on, because that in many cases appears to offend our sense of justice. So all those laws that prescribe the death penalty, which, by the way, are not just 21st century concerns. The rabbis 2,000 years ago really worried about how to interpret these, but I think that's a topic for another day. I think a third class of mitzvot, of commandments, are the ones where nominally that we agree with, and we say they are fine things, but actually we should feel uncomfortable about because our society and us perhaps as individuals fail so manifestly in achieving those goals. I think often we look at the first set of mitzvot that we're uncomfortable about, those ones that are sometimes called as primitive or that we try and hide. We look at with 21st century certainty and perhaps moral superiority over those people 2,500 years ago. But I wonder how justified that is when there are these imperatives that are laid down about social justice, about looking after people, making sure that everyone has their needs are met and are treated with dignity. The importance of not oppressing the stranger, which is perhaps the mitzvot that is expressed over and over again more than any other mitzvot. And how we manage our aspirations that we fail to achieve. We're now in the month of Elul, the month leading up to the High Holy Days, and it's a time for reflection. It's a time for us to think through where we have failed, either as individuals or as a community, show contrition, to embark on teshuvah. And I think this is for all its difficulty, it's a useful parasha to read, to guide us, to look at what achievements we've made, as well as our failings, and also not to be too proud or self-congratulatory. Part of what we should do on Elul, however, is not just about reflecting on our shortcomings and on where we've gone wrong and where we should do better. It's also about consolation and a time to reflect on the difficulties that we've experienced. We've all had challenges this year, and some people much more than others. And it's a time to reflect on that and how we can support each other. On Saturdays, after we read the Torah portion, we read a section from the Haftarah, the books of the prophets. And I think those of you who come regularly on Saturday mornings will know that on the overwhelming majority of cases, there's a very simple message from the Haftarah. You've all been behaving badly, and if you don't make contrition soon, God is going to punish you, and you are going to be really sorry. That's the message that we get probably 90% of the time. But the section of where we are now, we are in the Haftarot of consolation. It's a time when the prophets are seeing time for compassion that God shows for us, and that what we should show for other people. So Isaiah, where today's Haftarah comes from, or the portion of the Haftarah that will be read tomorrow, concludes with this: "For the mountains may move and the hills be shaken, but my loyalty shall never move from you, nor my covenant of friendship be shaken." So that is how Isaiah sees God's commitment to us. And perhaps what I will end off with is reflecting on what our commitment should be to ourselves and to others. And I'm going to end with Michael Waltz's words: "There's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together." Thank you. So we're now coming to the end part of the service, and I'm going to move to page 586 for the Elenu, and I will need your support if I could ask you to stand. So we had some choreography problems last week when Lael led the service, so people weren't sure of exactly which versions to do, and there's some contention around this, so as I'm the one leading the service, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We're going to do verse 2 of the Elenu on page 586. We'll then move to the top of page 588, and then we will move to the top of page 591. We'll do this together in English, and then we'll conclude in the middle with Benemah. So if we start on page 586. And please, you've heard my voice already, you really have to do this with me. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'teit gedula le'yotzei breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 588. שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסת הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובי המרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, Emet Mokeinu Efesulato, Kakatu, Betorato, Vayadata Hayom, Veshaveta, Elevavecha, Ki Adonai Hu Elohim, Bashamayim Imal, Vel Haaretz, Mitachat Ein Od. Top of page 591. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved of each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. V'nema v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. And if I could ask you to remain standing when we do the Kaddish. Just give me a minute just to turn. So we move to page 598. And so we'll do the Kaddish, which will particularly mark those people who've died in the last week, or people whose yahrzeit we are remembering, or anyone else who's important to us. I have some names that are on the yahrzeit list in the bulletin, and then we'll add other names. So we remember Sybil Abro, mother of Romaine Goldsmith, Rodolfo Joseph, uncle of Peter Joseph, Itzchak Kana, brother of Avi, Beryl Midlane, mother-in-law of Arlene, Shirley Pickholtz, mother of Diane Fine, Ernest Seaman, mother of Barbara, and Charles Teller, father of Tanya. Is there anyone else that anyone would like to name? I would like just to name Inga Scholl, who was one of the few survivors of the White Rose movement, which was a German resistance movement during the war. Most of them were murdered by the Nazis in 1943, and she was one of the few who survived. It's her yahrzeit today. And then we will move to page. Romain, do you want to come and help lead us? In our tradition, we say the Kaddish together, but people who are observing the yahrzeit, please, Peter, do you want to join? Peter and Romain will join me to help us lead the saying of the Kaddish on page 598. Just wait for them. If you come over here, sorry, Romain. The AV people have asked if we do it from here. Yes, please read it. So we'll all read it together.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash me Rabbah, Yalma divrach b'tei yamlich malchutei, v'chei chon uv'mechon, uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'gala uzman kariv v'imiru amen, Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach, Amei amaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, Yitba'ar v'trumam v'yitnaseh, Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shmei de Kudisha, Rihu, Leilan, Vinkol Birkata, Shirata, Tushkata, Venechemata, Damiran Bialma, Vimiru, Amen. Yehesh Lama Rabba Min Shmaya, Vachayim Aleinu, Valkol Yisrael, Vimiru, Amen. Use Shalom Bimumav, Uyase Shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'kol b'nei Adam, v'imru, Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Ruth, are there any messages that, if you would come over here and
Shabbat Shalom, Mishpacha v'Chaverim. It's lovely to see all of you here this evening, and not in four ways. We are heading there after the service, by the way, to the Limud conference. Thank you, Scott, for a very refreshing service. It was lovely being here. Where are you? Yeah. Thank you to Scott and our ensemble and our technical team. Announcements for this week. Forgive me, Russell, I haven't read the bulletin. I'll just speak off the top of my head what I remember. Next week, there will be a bar mitzvah of Zach Lurie, and he'll be a Friday night and Shabbat morning. More importantly, he's going to have a rabbi who will be leading the service with him. To those who don't know, we have Rabbi Danny Gottlieb, and he arrives from Canada on Friday the 1st. So I'm inviting all of you and those on Zoom and those at Limud to please come and meet the new rabbi who will be here for 1 month. And looking forward, ahead of that, a month in advance. Why am I nervous? I don't like this side, I prefer. Looking forward a month in advance to October, we have a rabbi that will be doing a look over, a meet and greet. She'll be coming from Texas, and the community will then decide whether we'd like to employ her as a full-time rabbi. So you're getting a little cat out of the bag tonight. So you are privileged that you are here this evening. And I think that's all. Russ, any other major announcements? That's it.
Martin is doing the service tomorrow.
Oh, forgive me. I always start with chronological, and I forgot tomorrow morning. There's a service at 9:30, and Martin Ramos will be leading that sermon. So come, those who are invited, who enjoy coming on a Shabbat morning. We should all be coming, but I'll be at Limud, so please come in my stead and come and listen to Martin lead the service, and how the lay readers are so phenomenal in reading from the Torah. We are so blessed in this community that we can keep it together, and we thank you for your support that you are here together with us upholding this community at this time as we are transitioning. So God bless you, Shabbat Shalom, and see you soon.
Thanks, Ruth. So that brings us to the end of the service. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you particularly to Jessica and Dylan and Saul and Russell for helping. And we will conclude with Shalom Aleichem on page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Malachim Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Achuni L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom,
Good Shabbos. Please come and join us at the bracha afterwards.
Good Shabbos, everybody.
Oh, okay. Beit Emanuel Shabbat to do. Yeah. Yeah.